Hi everyone, it's Stacey Luces. Welcome back to Beyond the Quo, this space where we have real conversations about leadership, purpose, and what it truly means to rise beyond the expected. As you know, we talk about three things on this podcast. We talk about redefining success on your own terms, living authentically, whatever that means to you in this season, and leading courageously, which for a lot of us, we only think we have to lead in the boardroom, but part of this conversation involves leading from wherever you are, starting with yourself, your family, your circles, your community, and then having sort of that greater impact on the world. Today, I want to talk about something that every single leader experiences, but hardly ever names. It's kind of that moment when you have to walk into a room that you know could change everything. Whether it's a partnership meeting or the investor call, maybe it's a conversation with a government entity that you're trying to land this big contract. Maybe it's a high stakes conversation with your board. I'm a founder, so maybe as a founder, it's having your first or maybe your 10th investor meeting where you are pitching. You are presenting something that could accelerate your vision, but you're full of doubt, right? You are in a moment where the stakes are really high and everything that you thought about this, everything that could go wrong is coming up inside of your throat, and literally you're having that Eminem moment where you're choking. So I want to talk about that challenge today because after years of leading, coaching, building, burning out, helping others do this, rebuilding, stepping onto global stages, I really think that this is something important that we all should know. It's really never about the pitch. It's about the leader that shows up to deliver it. And sometimes the leader that we are is not the person that's delivering the pitch because our fears and insecurities come to the forefront and really, stops us from getting what we need. So we're going to talk a little bit about what it means to prepare for those rooms, not necessarily the slides or the talking points or the perfect graphic, but you. How do we prepare you for those moments that could change your life? So we're going to go beyond the pitch. Get that from Beyond the Quo, beyond the pitch. And we're going to talk about how we can condition ourselves to treat these moments like an elite performance, and we're going to train for them and make them count when they have to. So there are certain things we do normally for situations like this. I know for me, when I'm having meetings, we rehearse. We maybe do a dry run with someone. We tweak the deck, maybe right up until the last minute. Maybe you have talking points if it's a virtual meeting and you're on a Zoom. Maybe you take a deep breath and you got little cheat notes written on your hand. Trust me, I've done all of these, you guys, all of these. It started in school and it never ended. What can you do beyond those tactical things that is not about performing or sounding smart or sounding polished, but how do you get that authenticity and that passion to shine true? One of the things is 80% of the outcome is probably already been decided by the time you open your mouth. It's in your posture. It's in your body language. It's in the way that you make eye contact. And while some of these things may be hard to do virtually, they really signal energetically sometimes the outcome of a meeting. And that is a hard pill to swallow because maybe your clarity, your intention, all of the internal grounding that you did to prep didn't quite prepare you, and the pitch you deliver is still surface level. So let's dig a little bit deeper into that, and I hope I can give you some strategies today for delivering on that conversation that could essentially change not only your life, but the life of your family or the trajectory of your company. So even this morning, I had one of those meetings. I'm not going to talk about names or give you any details, but something happened before the meeting. I had to go to the vet and I was running around hassled and I thought I had prepared. And when I looked at my notes and I looked again at the caliber of the individual I was talking to, I felt unprepared. A couple of things went through my head. I was like, wow, should I rephrase what I'm talking about? Should I reschedule the meeting? I mean, literally, I ran through all of the excuses and all of the alibis because I didn't feel prepared. And then I had to ground myself and say, hey, this is like a warm conversation. This person actually took the time and listened to a prior podcast episode, sent me a LinkedIn note to say that she really loved the energy and the vitality of what it is we were going to bring into the world. And she couldn't wait for the conversation. And I allowed that comment that she had sent me maybe about a week and a half ago when we were coordinating times to guide my energy at the beginning of that call. And then I don't want to say everything fell into perfect place, but the Stacey that stepped into that conversation versus maybe the Stacey that felt hassled and unprepared 5 minutes before, it changed the trajectory of the outcomes for that meeting. And so it allowed me a few things, right? Being energetically ready, being the Stacey that felt that confidence, but also that this person, had the highest and best outcomes for that meeting. Also, we had a shared agenda, enabled me to embody the truth and clarity and sort of passion I had around the things I was going to talk to her about, right? So I'm going to walk you through 4 questions that I use with executives, founders, government leaders, and yes, myself. They are simple, but they are also potentially game changing in that they ground you and allow you to have that confidence, right? And be the version of you that needs to show up for that meeting to get things done. So number 1, and none of these are going to be rocket science, you guys. So don't think you're going to, learn the science of the universe here. Or maybe you will. All right. So number 1, what's the real purpose of this meeting? Sounds simple. We have an agenda, but that's not the real purpose of this meeting. It's not the title or the calendar or, the words. It really is, what is my intention for this meeting? Is it to build a partnership? Is it to create alignment? Is it to establish credibility? Is it to plant a seed? Is it to understand their priorities and then maybe have a second meeting? Is it to build trust? A meeting without a purpose definitely becomes a performance. And a meeting with a purpose, that's when you call that a strategy. So I want to talk about what the real purpose of your meeting is. Understand that in your bones. And if you don't, maybe you say, hey, just want to be clear, this meeting is a partnership meeting or a strategy. Like, you can ask questions for clarifying questions, right? And as you know the intention of the meeting, you can shape the purpose of it. So number 2, what's the one thing you want them to walk away with? When I worked at Homeland Security, we had this thing where we talked about bottom line upfront, and every briefing deck or every meeting or everything had to have the bluff. What's the bottom line up front? And as you went through the presentation, it was super important that you stuck to the bluff, the bottom line. And so I think that when you put front and center what is the one thing you want them to walk away with, it gives clarity into the conversation. And even if they don't read the deck, even if they are distracted, even if their mind is on their next meeting, think about the one single thing that you want them to remember and that you want to dilute the essence of this value into one thing. And that is where you deliver sort of that takeaway. And if you can't articulate that, and I'm struggling to say this myself because it's easy to say but so hard to do. Great leaders are memorable because they speak from alignment, not from anxiety. And sometimes I will watch a whole TED Talk or a whole movie, and one sentence will stay with me, and I have to recalibrate what it is I'm doing. I remember one time I was watching someone deliver this presentation that was so simple and so elegant. And he said that at the end. He said, simple can be elegant. And even now, when my co-founder and I are designing things or talking through it or creating frameworks, even when I am thinking about an approach to coaching, I always say, Stacey, simple is elegant. Simple can be elegant. And I think that statement from his presentation, that's the one thing I remember. I don't remember what this guy was wearing or honestly what he talked about. It was a couple of years ago, but that's the one sentence. And I always think of him kind of when I talk about it. Question 3, how do you want to be remembered? And it's not about perception. It's about what did you want to exude during that interaction? Did you want to be seen as an expert, a visionary, a strategist, a collaborator, a disruptor, someone who is a trusted partner or ally? That identity becomes part of the impact that you leave on that person. And so you get to choose that identity before you even speak. you get to show up as the thing that you want them to walk away with. And I think we've all met powerful leaders, and they walk in already grounded in who they are, and the room goes quiet. People sit up, people pay attention. And so I think that's a big difference, right? There are some people that take a stage and no one stops talking. People pull out their phone. Like, what is it about that person and their presence and their charisma that grounds the conversation to a halt, that makes all eyes stand on them? I think they understand their purpose. They're confident in what they're going to deliver. And their presence itself exudes this magnetism that you're like, oh my gosh, I need to pay attention to that, right? We've all seen it. And so question 4 is, what is the win that doesn't depend on anyone else saying yes? Gosh, this is so hard. I know when I'm coaching and people are going through a complex situation or a presentation or some decision that they have to make, we talk about the highest and best outcomes, the most likely outcomes, and then outcomes that would completely detonate the whole conversation. And the highest and best outcomes, we give about 3 of them, and one of them has to be super simple. One of them has to be something like, I showed up on time. That sounds weird, but that win does not depend on anyone else saying yes. If the only win in a conversation that's high stake is, I need them to approve this, I need them to buy this, I need them to agree with this, then your power, who you are, your sovereignty, your autonomy, your personal power, I talk a lot about these things, is already given away. You put it in somebody else's hands. And maybe that person is just a grumpy old, so-and-so. So if the clarity or the win, it becomes I establish a connection, or I tested the message, or I honored my mission, or I strengthened my leadership identity, then you can walk out of whatever that interaction is and not feel defeated. I will tell you, recently, as we are launching Whistle and going into, so what is Whistle? For those of you that haven't listened to that episode, Whistle is the first and only power hub for global leaders of Caribbean heritage. And so we are having many conversations. A lot of them are pitches. A lot of them are for partnerships. A lot of them are with potential members. And I have had to take some medicine with the wins. And the medicine sometimes is super bitter, like gross. And I always think of it as a learning experience. I get to do something better. And it's not that I am being overly optimistic or asking you as a leader to be overly optimistic, but definitely when I go in with the mindset that, yeah, this was hard, but what did I learn? What can I do better? How can I sharpen, the tip of the thing the next time? I think that's the point of this journey, a part of it, right? And so those 4 questions, I think, can really guide you as you prepare for some of these life-altering pitches or conversation. I also want to talk about this also. We are talking with men and women in the past couple of months, and a conversation came up again where this highly accomplished, highly credible, amazing female leader was doubting herself. And I always remember that statistic that says women want to be 100% ready before they take the leap or apply for the job or do the thing. And men are comfortable at a 60% readiness, jumping into and saying, me, me, me. And I feel like when we are navigating systems where historically maybe we haven't seen ourselves reflected, we're walking into the room with that silent pressure of, don't mess this up. Sound smart. Don't be too much. Don't laugh too loud. Don't be too passionate. Don't be too quiet. Say the right thing. I mean, just all of that noise. And that energy really destroys the clarity of what it is we want to do or what it is we can accomplish, right? And so what else does it do? Well, it stifles your authenticity. And we talk about leading authentically, living authentically. It creates this pressure, this undue pressure on you that maybe you don't need. And it really disconnects you from your zone of genius. So none of us are going to excel in survival mode or doubtful mode or imposter syndrome mode. So how do we do that, right? We have that presence and that confidence. And I would say, even if you think you're 60%, you're probably closer to 90%. So just do it, right? Another part of this is the internal work of leadership. So I want to talk about work that many leaders that come to me skip. People show up for coaching and for partnerships with me when things are typically bad. So they've had a burnout, an existential crisis, a big health scare. I myself showed up for coaching in my own life when I was leading big teams and doing big things after a massive burnout, after I went through a couple of years of trying to figure things out myself. And to me, it was a last resort. And I think that when a brilliant leader dims their light, and just going through the motion where it's just, I'm just going to prepare my talking points. I'm going to push through. I've got to do this. There's another part of us that we have to prepare that maybe has been undernourished for quite a long time. It's our nervous system, our mindset, our emotional grounding, our posture, our values. It's all of these identity things, these core values things that honestly fill our cups when there's seemingly nothing on the table to fill our cup with. And when we go into situations with that empty cup, that exhaustion, that fatigue, sleepless nights, constant worry, overbooked calendar, and we're trying to have the pitch conversation that could change our life, I don't know that it happens the way that we think we know it could have happened, right? And so how do you prepare the perfect pitch when your presence and you yourself are diluted? Another funny thing I say a lot is we can't build castles on quicksand. And so you can have an imperfect pitch, you can be messy, but if your presence is aligned and passionate and grounded, people respond to that. That's why we love messy stories on Instagram. We love messy, real, authentic wins, not the prescribed ones where, they had probably somebody with $1 billion backing their program, but the one where the founder's like, and I spent 400 hours pitching and my first sale was $27. I know Amy Potterfield, she does online course creation. And I took a course with her a couple of years ago, and it was my first time training with a coach on how to do online courses, how to create online courses for membership communities. And Amy talked about doing this big pitch and having a big launch, and I think selling $297 worth of product. She also shared videos with her and her husband where he was filming her and she was stumbling over her words, forgetting things. And also there was one, it was hilarious, you guys. In the video, you could see her, but you could also see him because there was a mirror right off to the side. And you could see him like waving at her and like widening his eyes when she said a blooper. And what we all loved, both as her students, but also as future teachers, was the journey and the grittiness of it. And so I want to say, when you stand in that true identity and when you kind of unleash that perfection syndrome, the sky's the limit. I want to give you another framework here that I think is going to be super helpful for you as you go beyond the pitch. When you walk into high stakes rooms or a room, and the rest of you is like quietly dying and counting you out of the conversation, here's a Beyond framework you can use. I use Beyond for everything. Breathe. That's what the B stands for. Slow down, get present, regulate your nervous system. Any conversation, any connection, any leadership begins in your body before you even use words. There are a lot of days I'm coming into the studio to do a podcast and I feel hassled, and I always say, give me a minute before you do the countdown. And sometimes I don't even close my eyes, but I sort of just think about what the outcome for the conversation is, and it really guides the interaction. Because if I came in here and I was talking all loud and crazy and frenetically at you, I don't think that my message would get through. So the first kind of rule for this framework of breathe, of beyond, going beyond the pitch is to breathe. The other one, and I talked about this earlier, is establish your intention. What are you here in this moment, in this interaction, in this meeting to create? What are you trying to create? Not, oh my God, let me say the right words. The Y stands for yield the performance. There's so much pressure to like be perfect. There's so much pressure to impress. There's so much times we're editing ourselves and auditioning, right? Go for alignment. I was talking to someone I deeply respect and admire just now, and I said something. So he's from Guyana and I'm from Trinidad originally, and we're both very American also. And I said something fully in accent, and I dropped a little cuss, and he started laughing, and then we went right back to talking strategy. And I loved that I was able to yield that performance with him and have a conversation that felt, this is fully me. This is fully Stacey. This is how I'm moving in the world, right? The O and beyond in this framework is owning your identity. I talk so much about the performative version of you and the authentic version of you, and how knowing your core values, which is a big part of what I teach, brings to bear, brings to fruit, how your authenticity is able to get you further faster. And so you're not that title. You're not the leader carrying the vision. You are someone that is owning your power, commanding the stage. You know your product better than anybody else. And when you kind of lean in, wow, I'm going to go off script here. My stomach just made this huge okay, there's me being authentic. I was like, wow, did I even eat today? But definitely, yes, I'm yielding the performance to you guys and saying, yeah, my stomach just did this big meow. Hopefully you didn't hear it. All right, so the N in beyond in this framework is name the one thing. Remember what I talked about? What's the one idea you want people to walk away with, right? So what is their one takeaway? Honestly, what's your one takeaway from the meeting? You want to know that clearly, confidently, and without apology. If they walked away and they remembered one thing I said today, what would that be? And then this is the hardest for me still. This is the hardest, I think, for most of the leaders I work with, is how do you detach from the outcome? My former business coach, Mark, he used to say that all the time. Stacey, you have to detach from the outcome. And I was like, well, Mark, what's the point of all of this if there's no outcome to be had? But I think when you detach from all of the pressure that the quote unquote outcome puts on you, you're able to show up much more fluid, much more adaptable, and go with the flow. And so I think that this Beyond framework really can pull you out of performance and into leadership. And that's super powerful, right? Especially when you're pitching. So before I close, I want to give you some reflection questions. So we've talked a lot, right? I gave you 4 kind of questions to ask. I tied it into this Beyond framework, which I will repeat. B is for breathe. E is for establish your intention. What are you here to create? Y is for yield a performance. You're not auditioning. O is owning your identity, right? Not the title, not the whatever you think version of you think has to show up. Name the one thing you want them to walk away with. That's the N. And D, detach from the outcome. And these are some questions as you craft kind of this framework for yourself or whatever the pitch thing is that you're doing. I want you to take a moment, pause this episode, grab a pen and write these down, right? And I'll put these, you guys, in my notes on YouTube. If you go to Beyond the Quo on YouTube, you'll find them. And you can do this for future things too. Maybe if you don't have one of these planned, this can become your roadmap for how you get into those rooms for those big pitches. All right, so question 1, what big room am I preparing to walk into or walk into soon? Question 2, am I preparing content or preparing my leadership presence? Remember what I told you. All of those internal things that we forget to set up ahead of that meeting will sabotage us. Whether it's your mindset, your confidence level, your energy level, these things signal the outcome of a meeting before you even open your mouth. Seriously. I mean, I'm living it right now, bro. Did I say bro? Yeah, I've got teenagers. All right, question 3. What is the intention of that room? Is it a partnership? Is it a connection? Is it what is the intention of the room? And if you don't know, I encourage you to find out. Nobody's going to be mad if you reach out and to the person you're having the meeting or the pitch thing with and saying, hey, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. These are my assumptions or my expectations of that meeting. And they'll be like, yes, no, whatever. And maybe what happens is if the right people aren't in the room, then that opens the conversation to how can you invite them in, right? And then number 4 is, what is one sentence I want remembered? Really critical. Number 5, who do I need to be in that room? This is where soft power and hard power come into play. A lot of times when I worked in different departments, I would bring into every interaction hard power. I felt like I had to be authoritative, have a commanding presence, use kind of my deeper voice to be taken seriously. And a lot of the industries I worked in, DoD, DHS, they were very male dominated and very command control, a lot of ex-military and military type guys. And coming back into, I call it my soft power, feels really alien sometimes because for decades I lived in that hard power situation. But now I choose kind of the identity I want to embody. And it's really, that's what I teach. And you don't always have to be soft and squishy, but knowing how to wield both forms of authority, soft power and hard power, is super important. And the other one is, what is the win that doesn't depend on their yes? Remember, I gave you that really simple, kind of silly one, which is, I will show up on time for that meeting. That could be a win, right? And so these are questions that really build leadership, not a performance. It's not a pitch deck and it's not a talking point. These are things that can empower you and fire you up to deliver, honestly, the pitch of your life. I also think that these are really great things if you are a parent. So I have teenagers, and many of the clients that I have kids. It's a great thing to teach our kids because they have to learn early on that if they want to take an idea and take something from ideation, getting it on paper, getting the resources for it, and putting it out in the world so they can have impact, they have to be able to express those things in different mediums, but also do it in a way that builds and engineers and excites and creates energy around it where more and more people want to buy into what initially was just your great idea, right? So as we wrap up today's episode, I want you to remember a couple of things. We don't rise. None of us rises because our pitch is perfect. We rise because we are grounded in who we are, clear on the mission that we're carrying, and honestly brave enough to stand in rooms that sometimes maybe weren't designed with you in mind and still claim space, still hold the mic, which isn't a physical thing. Holding people's attention is one of the most valuable skills that any of us can have. So leadership is not what you do when the spotlight hits. It's really how do we prepare when no one's watching. So the next time you have a big meeting, a big decision, a big moment, don't do what we've been kind of taught to do, which is just practice the pitch. Let's prepare ourselves as leaders who are delivering it, because that is right there. That's what's going to take us beyond the quo, beyond the pitch. So I thank you for listening today. If this resonated with you, please like, share, subscribe, share it with someone that you know is coming up on a big moment in their life and maybe they're second guessing themselves. And I hope that you're somebody that's navigating a big vision and that this gave you some strategies and insights into how to do that in a way that not only engineers more good in the world, but empowers you to do more great things. I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks.